one of your principles, finish strong. Can you talk a little bit about why that's so important, but also why is it so hard? Why does that need to be something that we emphasize in training?
Well, I'm a freestyle rapper, and part of being a freestyle rapper is Googling freestyle rappers. And one day I stumbled upon this study that put freestyle rappers into an MRI machine and asked them to freestyle so that they could study the brain activity while they're in flow. And what they discovered was that as these rappers began to freestyle, this prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that's analyzing and judging, it shuts off. There's no activity there anymore, as you would expect, because they're in flow. In fact, freestyling is often, the term is called flowing. And so it makes sense. They're in flow. What's fascinating is that the prefrontal cortex stays off the entire time, except this pattern emerged where as the freestyle rappers were concluding, all of a sudden this part of the brain just lights up and starts going crazy. And it was consistent. So it makes sense because as the freestyle rappers are concluding, they have to think of a conclusion of how to summarize everything or how to end beautifully while staying on beat, while making sure it rhymes. And that's so much cognitive load that essentially at the end of the flow cycle, the brain wakes up and says, uh-oh, I got to wrap up. And we've noticed that whether it's in freestyle rapping or in speaking, as soon as it's time to wrap up, as soon as you approach the end of what you're wanting to say, it's like your brain wakes up. It exits flow and it becomes self-aware of like, oh my God, was I speaking this whole time? How do I end? And it's a very internal process. It just kind of feels a little bit like waking up from the flow of speaking. And when you wake up from flow, it feels clunky. It doesn't feel like flow anymore. And the ingredient that we see in most people is they begin to doubt everything that they just said. They begin to second guess it all, but there's nothing they can do about it. It's the end. Like, what else can you do? You're approaching the end. So what we've noticed is that most people will end weak. They will approach that moment, they'll snap out of flow, and something about the way that they end, you'll see whether it's the slouching, whether the voice trails off, whether it's just like, and yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. It's like this meekness that enters, and it's subtle, but when you're a public speaking coach, you start to look for it and you see that all of us tend to do it because we just lose that confidence. We start to second guess ourselves. And so the principle of end strong doesn't mean say something meaningful. It doesn't even mean like say something brilliant. It just means keep your confidence through the finish line. Put that extra confidence. Be mindful that your brain's going to try and trick you into thinking you should be less confident. So right at the end, when it's time to wrap up, you could use a summary prompt. You could say, at the end of the day, all I'm trying to say is blah, 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 blah. But regardless of what you say, it's how you say it. It's putting that extra emphasis of confidence and just making sure that when you're finished speaking, you say your final words with a little bit more energy, and then you hold the pose. You stay in character, because even after you're done speaking, you got to make sure you play the part. You can't just shrink down. So ending strong is just a reminder that your brain's going to try and trick you, and you need to undo the effects of that by putting just a little bit more confidence into how you say your final words.
Michael, something that you dropped off with us was just the way you say thank you at the end is a bit of a release. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think it's about making an intentional landing. And some people, when they finish speaking, they can feel that they didn't land well. Like it's just a feeling of like, wow, I really botched that last sentence. And so the strategy here is, if you feel like that wasn't a landing, go back in for one more circle. And that one more sentence can be, and so in conclude, that's really all I've been thinking about today. Thanks. Like your final sentence can be, and that's all I have to say on that. Or, and that's my ideas so far. It's just one final sentence, but what you're doing is you're taking control of when you end, and you're deciding, I'm going to deliberately end and land the plane on my own terms. And sometimes it can be as simple as, thank you. It's a little weird if you're like, with a group of friends and you're like, thank you. But it's just about building the awareness and the habit of, was I in control of my landing, or did I just kind of abruptly finish and feel uncomfortable about it? If that discomfort is there, you're not done. Go back in for one more sentence. It doesn't have to be a brilliant sentence, but just land on your own terms and build the habit of every time you speak, you're the one that's in control.